I know Karen's up in
There we go.
Saskatchewan and Sharon's here in the Rockies with me. Where are you?
Florida.
Oh, nice and balmy 72, right?
It is hot here.
I'm about to head to that side of the world and I think I want to cry, actually. I'm just like, I don't want to go to 114-degree weather where I sweat when I come out of the shower. This does not sound like fun.
Yeah. You definitely sweat like the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep.
And where are you in Florida? I used to live in Hollywood, Florida.
Oh, so we're close in Parkland.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. That was like, all I remember is this curve to the Coast Guard base where my dad was on the Hollyhawk. And the old copper baby ad was on there, with the little dog pulling down her little dog. Yeah. That's how long ago that was. That was what I remember. That's pretty good. I think I was 3. That's pretty good to have that memory.
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness. We got Felisa Jane. She's here in the Rockies with us too, man. I got all the Rockies represented today. That's exciting. Oh my goodness. All right. Give everybody just another second. Hello. Oh, she's evidently not in the Rockies. She is on the space station today. She usually has a nice backdrop of some mountain scene that looks like
Well, that's on my laptop. This is on my cell phone. So.
Oh yeah, that would do it. Yeah, that would do it. That would do it. How fun. How fun. Well, we will go ahead and jump right in. How about that, guys? Are you guys ready? Are you ready to learn today about emotional regulation? That thing that we wish as adults we could figure out.
Like, what is that? Are you talking to me? Sure.
We can dream. Can we dream?
Yeah.
All right. I shall spotlight us. All right. Let me go over just a few tidbits here. So everybody who's watching the replay, and I have like 20 something people are like, can I have the replay? I'm like, sure. I love it. It'll be great. Just watch the replay. Make sure you know what we're doing this week. All righty. Well, I had notes up. There they are. All right. Make sure that you do have pen and paper. You are going to want those, especially with today's topic. And I got to tell you, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you take a screenshot. Just know that some of the pictures in the presentation I'm going to give today may be copyrighted, so I wouldn't necessarily post those out just in case they're copyrighted. And so I am Crystal Griffith, for those of you who don't know me. I am a patient, a caregiver, and medical mom warrior of an incredibly talented 17-year-old, quite medically complex daughter named Katie, which you will hear lots about throughout this week. And really, I'm a Jesus-loving, sweet tea drinking Renaissance woman. I love to empower those around me to walk out their kingdom destiny on a daily basis. And I have several companies, one of which is Medical Mom Warriors. I really want to help activate warriors who are entrepreneurs with business strategies, really as they're building businesses from the waiting room, as they're building businesses as new entrepreneurs, and they're working on those challenges, those marketing events that they want to get out there. I also like to empower people with holistic tools for kingdom health, hence this event, and really create community to keep them connected on their medical journey, whether as a caregiver or as a patient. Life happens, though, along the way when we are heading towards our destiny, doesn't it? And it led me to walk with clients through deployments, 9 of which I experienced myself as a military wife, life-threatening allergies. Those are awesome, my kiddo. Several autoimmune diseases. I think we actually should have an award in our family for how many you can possibly have in one family. Cancer, a couple times for me. Traumatic brain injuries, concussions, marriage difficulties, abuse, PTSD, reactive attachment disorders, dissociative disorders, generational traumas, and pretty much all those things that go bump in the night, medically, physically, or emotionally. They've all influenced my life directly as well. And so I'm really focused today and this week to help you guys build your holistic toolkits. Now, I can do that in a couple of different ways to help you out. one of which is being a certified inner healing practitioner. We realize that all those lovely emotions that we like to stuff, avoid, ignore, pretend don't exist, guess what? Those feelings buried alive, they never die. They infiltrate our systems, our organs, our thoughts, our emotions, and so many other things that begin to create lots of havoc. And we don't want that to be there for you anymore. So we want to work on those things, as well as contemplate how we can use the tools that you're going to hear about this week in your own life. And then is there an opportunity for you to leverage any of those tools while you're sitting in those waiting rooms as a patient or a caregiver? Because the fact is, we tend to talk about those things that help us the most. And that's actually how this particular event came about 2 years ago. I had a lot of people going, oh, you really should just share all this information that you have about all these cool tools that you guys use and that are helping you. And hence we have Medical Mom Warriors. So my beautifully creative, humorous, horse-loving teen daughter and I, we enjoy right now our time in the Colorado Rockies, rafting, riding horses, and we visit a lot of doctors. Now, here's your disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I think I should have a PhD in it at this point, but that's not what I'm working on for my PhD. But I am a researcher. I also have my master's in education, 2 emotional trauma certifications, inner healing accreditation, and a couple more little tricks and tips up my sleeve. But this event this week is for education, edification, and encouragement. So I am going to advise you to always seek consultation with your doctor before you have anything that you invite into your life as a holistic tool. And so now we are officially legalized, and I have told you to go check with your doctor. Everybody in agreement? Just raise your hand. Okay, so I make sure we were all there. Let me share my screen with you for a brief moment. I want to make sure that you guys know all about this amazing group that we have here. This is actually our Medical Mom Warriors group. And I actually moved this. I had another group that had about 90 people in it. And to be honest, I moved to a new group because I wanted to share with you guys very specifically those key things about the tools that we're going to talk about, and then how to use those and leverage them in your life the best way. So it was slightly a different idea, and that's why we have a new group. So you'll see under guides, this is where you will find all the replays. So for example, today after I record this one, I'll have this up under day 1 for you. There are a couple of pre-warm-up videos though for you right there. This is an amazing one, the pre-warm-up bonus. This is actually Lisa Woodruff of Organize 365. You may recognize that name. She is the organizer extraordinary, and she actually had 2 anaphylactic kiddos that she required, figuring out how to create a medical binder, how to sort through that, how to stay on top of advocacy. And so that is just a wealth of information if you guys want to check that interview out. And then we also have Cheryl Ivanescu. So maybe a couple of you have some stress issues, maybe some sleep issues, maybe you're pre-diabetic, maybe you are diabetic. That interview with Cheryl is phenomenal, and she just breaks out all the visual tools for you. So I know, Felicia Jane, you're going to love that one. And so she breaks these things out so you can actually see what happens with your blood with insulin and without insulin. And it is just, I just love that interview. In fact, this morning alone, I was actually working getting my car fixed, and I happened to just be chatting with somebody else and shared that interview with them. So you just never know when you're going to be talking to people about any of these tools, even in a car dealership. So there you go. So as you go through, you're going to see there's day 1, that's me. And we're going to talk about 10 stealth tools for emotional health. And then tomorrow, we actually have 2 special things for you. I interviewed Amanda Farron, and I'm actually going to release that interview right after we talk today. And she is a blogger who has a very unique story. She's actually terminal, but she is not looking for pity, that is for sure. She is looking to encourage everyone else. So she has this little hashtag, terminal ain't terrible. So Amanda, I have actually known. She was Katie's very first praise and worship leader. So that's just a neat journey to go on. Not one that I would have ever wanted for anybody, especially her, but what she's doing with it and how she's walking it out is pretty profound and powerful. And then I'm also going to release an interview that I did with James Ost. He actually runs our hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber center here. And Amanda actually has had incredible, really nothing short of miraculous results using HBOT therapy. So I felt it was very important that we actually talk with somebody who runs a center, who can explain what that does and give you some ideas of how it might help you or a loved one that you might know who could use it. HBOT is a pretty incredible tool, that's for sure. And then our next day is going to be a conversation with Rico Petrini. He actually is a walking, living, thriving survivor of CTE. Now, you might know that from the movie that Will Smith played, the doctor who found CTE in one of the brains of an NFL player who had passed. If you've not seen that movie, it's called Concussion. I would really encourage you to do that, even if you don't think you have CTE. That movie was enlightening, just about how your brain works and how it's working itself out and what heals and what doesn't and how you can best support it. And so Rico has actually found a tool that we're going to be sharing that day that has literally brought him back from the brink of death. And just last week alone, we lost 5 actual former and current NFL players to CTE and the effects of CTE. So this is a very real problem, especially for our children who are playing those sports where you can have a lot of head hits. My kiddo had 11 concussions just literally by walking or running because she had balance and spatial issues. So she's not aware of where people are in her space. And so she's got 11 head hits herself. So it's just very important that we're taking care of this one brain that we are given, right? And we take care of it well. So that's Rico. And then on day 4, we are actually going to talk with 2 ladies, Charity and Donna. And I actually know Donna very well. She actually is an inner healing practitioner as well. She's certified in the same thing that I am. And a couple of years ago, you're going to hear from her about her story. She was pretty much at death's door as well. And they could not figure out what was wrong with her. They thought it was a blood-brain barrier issue. They thought it was her blood itself. I mean, any number of things. And she stumbled onto stem cell activation. And in the process of using that, she has revolutionized her health. And it is back from that brink. You would never have known that. In fact, the crazy thing is even her gray hair is now turning brown again. So those of you who may or may not have the gray of wisdom is what I call it, the crown of glory, right? In the gray. Yes, I can't color my hair anymore because I had melanoma on my head. So I love that I will be able to get rid of the gray in using this tool. It's awesome. And then day 5, oh, I just love this dear lady. She is actually in Italy and she is so generous and just a phenomenal wealth of information and resources. She became a doctor of holistic therapies because of what she experienced as a child. And you'll get to hear her story that day. And Dr. Moschina is just incredible. And she is actually going to share with you about this incredible little tool. And this is a frequency unit. And that little tool right there is what caught my shingles a week before they popped out. And I had never had shingles before. So I just thought it was another little one of my cancer spots. And I'm like, oh man, I got to go back to the dermatologist. And a week later, they were all down my neck. I'm like, what the heck is this? But that also tool got rid of them within a week, which is unheard of for shingles. Usually it's 6 to 8 weeks. It's lots of drugs, consistency, and then another flare. I mean, it was crazy what happened in using that tool on a daily basis. It also was instrumental for my daughter when she lost the use of her legs. And you'll hear about that story this week. And then also in Lyme, because my daughter got diagnosed with Lyme 2 years ago. We have lots of fun over here. So that tool is pretty portable, efficient, and boy, does it work well and gets your cells in the right voltage that it needs to be so they can thrive in their environment. Then as a special bonus, I was able to connect with Lindsay Johnson. Now, for those of you who don't know her, she's pretty darn big on TikTok. Now, I'm not a big TikToker, but what she does is she then sends them over to the Facebook Reels, which is what I am a person of, always looking for different things for my different membership groups that I have. And Lindsay Johnson is really a strong advocate, not only for patient advocacy, but against medical gaslighting. And if you've been a patient or you're a caregiver, you've experienced that. I guarantee it. And that could look like in the form of being dismissed when you go to the ER. Anybody had that experience? I can't raise enough fingers and hands to have that experience, right? Every time we go, I just cringe going, how are they going to treat us this time, right? And so being dismissed by doctors is not okay. I just had this experience with one of my good friends just last weekend as well. We actually had to go to a second ER because the first one refused to treat her. And she was in excruciating pain and couldn't even stand up without losing part of her body feeling. So there's always these things that we go to in the doctor's office expecting them to actually help us. And the fact is, sometimes they just don't, they can't, they won't, or they don't know how, really is what it comes down to. So how do we make that stand the best way that we can in our advocacy? And so she talks a lot about that, and you'll hear her incredible story. She was also a veteran, served overseas, also a victim of assault that created a lot of emotional and physical ramifications. And then she's also going to talk about daily accommodations. What does it look like for her on a daily basis to actually survive her days? Because for her, she's still in that survival mode, but there are moments that she can thrive. There are moments where she gets back into her music. She's also taking college classes, and she is capturing her life back. And that's the most important thing that we can do when we're walking through, even as a patient or a caregiver. We want to make sure that we're staying in charge of our life for the best health possible. So that is where we're going for the week as well. And so as we play each one of those, come make sure you're in the guide so you guys can see those. Please invite your friends, guys. This event, I ran it 2 years ago. And to be honest, I had 350 people signed up at that event. And this one, I haven't had that many. And part of it, I think, is honestly, we're a little over Zoomed. But this information is just so important. I guarantee you know people in your life that these tools are going to be able to help, if not you, and if not your medically complex loved one. So I really just want to get this information out there as quickly and as easily as possible. So please help me out. Please make that referral, medicalmomwarriors.com. I would appreciate it so much. We want to get this out there. Okay, so with all that fun said, let's make sure we have everything that we need to do. Oh, how are you going to win prizes? That's very important this week, right? We got lots of prizes to give away this week. So the first thing that you're going to do is watch the video that's released, except today. Today you get me live. Aren't you guys excited to get me live? Now, I will tell you, 10 minutes before I came on here, my teleprompter broke. So we have lots of notes on paper. So you guys will just love me as I move my papers outside as I work with my notes. I probably could give this talk in my sleep, but you know, I'm trying to stay focused and not on a rabbit trail today. Now, that's step one. You're going to want to watch the video that's been released. And then step two, you're going to want to join us live. So tomorrow is a special time because don't we all love those doctors that call and go, the doctor needs to move your appointment. And you're like, but I have my whole life wrapped around that time of that appointment, like a challenge that I needed to be on at 2 o'clock tomorrow, right? Yeah, I will not be here at 2 o'clock tomorrow. I will be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow because we all love doctors. So we have that appointment tomorrow, 3 o'clock. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 2 p.m. right here, same station, same channel. Don't miss out. We will have our live Q&A based on the video that was released and any questions that you might have about it. And then to be in the running for those tools, as well as some special presents and gifts, you will need to then go live into our group. And I would love to hear what you learned in that talk for the day. So as you're going through, what was it about the tool that really interests you? What questions do you still have about the tool? And how do you think it could help you really? So just go live and talk about the tool that you just heard about. Now, today we're talking actually about 10 stealth tools. And so you're going to hear all about those, one of which I actually already have on right there. And you're going to hear about that one in just a minute. That helps that little place right there in your brain. And we all could use a little more of that little help right now. Trust me. And so why don't we just go ahead and get started today? Does that work for you guys? You ready to get started? All right, we are going to do it. So I heard a question. Talk to me.
No, I said it works for me.
All right, let's do it. Now, I am going to go ahead and mute all of you guys as we are in. Hello, Jen. Just saw you pop in. Welcome, welcome. And let's go ahead and get started. These are 10 stealth tools for emotional health. Now, if you guys will hold your questions to the end, that would be super helpful. And then I will be happy to answer any of them and bring back the presentation if you have any questions on it. I can't read the chat and do the presentation at this time. So definitely put your questions in the chat and then we'll address them as soon as we're done. All right. So I again am Crystal Griffith. And I am here with Medical Mom Warriors, holistic tools for kingdom health. 10 stealth tools for emotional health. So I was sitting at my desk in my home office, overhearing my teens' music. We all hear the teens' music, right? Even through their headphones, because they're awesome. And she was playing in the living room, just behind this wall right here. And the steps of her feet were on the hardwood floor. She kind of danced around. She loves to dance. And a cry pierced the music. A thud on the floor, and that called me to my feet, running towards the noise. Mom, I can't feel my legs. That led to a 5-day inpatient stay for us, and we heard a dreaded diagnosis of conversion disorder. The later updated version of that name is called functional neurological disorder, or FND. You'll hear some more about that this week. That was the day that I learned there are actually 2 sets of nerves for the legs, one sensory and one motor. Within a few months, my daughter, Katie, was back to walking, but still very diminished in feeling. In fact, if she cut her leg shaving, she would not realize she was bleeding. Her feeling now, and we're about 2 years out, is just about 90% on a good day in both legs over that 2-year leader. But yet in this situation, this was not the first time that I had to step into a caregiver role for my daughter. She was hours old with jaundice, food anaphylaxis at 9 months, celiac disease at 6 years old, ADHD at 10, autism spectrum at 13, and the list goes on. There's a few others. But FND, this functional neurological disorder, wow, that's the one that really kind of took my breath away. And the fact is, I felt like the doctors just settled upon that diagnosis because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. And that's the one that led me to creating Medical Mom Warrior Summit in 2020, searching for answers. And out of that journey came many of the tools that you are about to see this week, as well as the 10 that you're about to hear that are stealth mode. So let's get started. So welcome right now, and make sure that you guys have your pen and paper because you are really going to want to take notes today. Thank you for joining me. I know you guys took your time to do that today, and I appreciate it. So here's my first question to you. Did you know that your emotions are actually body wisdom? Let's think about that for a second. So now I want to remind you, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a researcher, a caregiver, and a patient. So education, edification, and encouragement as we do this. Emotional health convergence. We're really looking here at what is emotional health? What is the emotion-brain alliance? What are the peacekeeping tools to keep that alliance going between mind, body, and spirit? So these three components have been key to staying as stable as possible, reducing for my kiddo the number of non-epileptic seizures that she has, called PENS, P-N-E-S, seizures, and dysautonomia episodes. So when we really talk about emotional health, we want to think in terms of what does that look like in a stoplight? For me, the light was green. A real stoplight, the light was green. The intersection was clear, or so I thought. And the next thing I remember is someone banging on the side of my car, yelling, "Get out of the car's gonna explode." And I'm trying to come out of whatever it was that I was in and open the door. And then we realized we can't get the door open because he had T-boned into the driver's side of me. And I had to come out the other side. It was a big mess. And 2 weeks later, the brain injury from that experience, that's when it was diagnosed. Now, keep in mind, the information being shared today does not in any way indicate what you are walking through is all in your head. I say that on purpose because I had a number of doctors literally pat me on the leg and tell me it was all in my head. The pain that I was feeling was in my head. The fact that I could not open my eyes, I could not listen, I could not hear, I could not interact, I couldn't even think, was all in my head. And that was even after they saw a subdural hematoma on an MRI. And they chose to ignore symptoms, they chose to ignore side effects, and they ignored lifelong cognitive issues. Now, some of you might understand that. Some of you have some long-term haul symptoms of this lovely result of the pandemic, right? Some of you have lifelong, what seems like issues that you've been handling for a long time. I want to assure you, though, this is really important, that what you're experiencing is very, very real. It is not all in your head. It has valid symptoms and roots within the body that dictate, manage, and infiltrate your body and your brain, both pieces. And you're going to hear from a couple of people this week that talk about the fact that your gut is your second brain. And that is a whole nother ball of wax that you guys are going to want to follow up on. I'm going to give you all those tools. So let's talk about what is emotional health. So first of all, we have mental health, which are your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Okay. Then you have emotional health. That's more your well-being and your wellness. So the definition of mental health typically refers to a state of being related to that brain and mind, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Basically, think in terms of your central nervous system. Emotional health, in contrast, though, refers to well-being, the way that someone views or lives a life of wellness. Emotional health is optimal functioning, the end of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that make up both our inner and our outer worlds. So as we're looking at these, how do these then work together? So the first thing that we really want to take a look at is self-awareness, self-acceptance. How do we join those together? How are they in union together? Now, you may have seen this particular circle a variety of ways and times. Sometimes it's about boundaries, what's in your control and what's out of your control. I really liked this one because it made you more aware of concern versus control instead. So the first step in any journey to emotional health and wholeness is awareness. An emotionally well person can look at the self and they can redirect those emotions when you need to, right? So if you realize that you are like biting somebody's head off, you can take a step back and go, am I playing out the Snickers commercial? And do I need something to eat, right? Am I hangry, right? So you have enough emotional awareness to realize you need to do that for yourself. So then you navigate yourself away from distress and even away from elation, because even elation, exciting things can overwhelm your system. So when you are in charge of that and you're aware of that, you can see whether you need to take a step back, reassess, reorganize, and re-regulate. Now, this ability tends to develop throughout childhood, so it can be strengthened as you get older. The more situations that you are running into, that reinforces those key pieces that you're learning along the way. Kind of like a muscle in adulthood. But are we really doing the self-aware, self-accept with the third one, which is self-care? So when you think in terms of self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-care, how are they all working together? So they tend to be in conjunction with the self-acceptance. So emotionally healthy people really can accept themselves. They're not worrying about the other's opinions, and they can handle adversity with clarity. That's really important. Oftentimes we'll say kids are resilient. I hate to be the one to break the stereotype. Kids are not resilient. Kids are not resilient because they have not been taught how to be resilient. Kids are not resilient because they do not have the self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-care boundaries and regulations that we should as adults. So when we say kids are resilient, they'll come back. The fact is, what the kids are actually doing is being told, don't worry about those emotions or feelings right now, just dismiss them, just stop them. And then what happens, they then begin to infiltrate all their decisions, how they think about things, how they're interacting, how they're making decisions, how they're making judgment calls, how they're thinking in what they think is rationality, but it's really not, it's trauma-based responses. And then they get to adulthood and they wonder why their life is falling apart. Now, I'm not here, we're not judging, we're not blaming parents for any of that, okay? The point is we need to understand that we as adults, we have to teach those skills, which probably means we need to know those skills, right? All right, so we have to learn them well so we can model and teach them for them. That's the point of this conversation. So an emotionally healthy person might even allow themselves space behind closed doors, a temper tantrum, to allow anger to move through them. In fact, one of the best things that I got told while I was going through my divorce was to go buy one of those oversized plastic red bats, right? So it's like about this long and it's got like the barrel like this big and it's super big and plastic, right? Great for like 3-year-olds. And then they suggested that I come into the bed and beat my bed. Well, the problem is I really like my bed and I don't want to beat my bed. So that mode didn't really work for me. But then another friend said, you should go to Goodwill and you should buy like the cheapest breakable dishes ever. It doesn't matter if they've got cracks. It doesn't matter if they're like nasty, just buy them. Then what you're going to do is going to bring a tarp and the plates. No, this is not for any bodies. So we're going to bring the tarp. We're going to lay the tarp on a florist floor by a tree. And then we're going to take those plates and throw them and crash them into the tree, onto the ground, and break them apart as we're verbalizing these things that we need to get out of our system so they are not hijacking our central nervous system, which we're about to talk about. That works super well. And in fact, I taught that skill to a couple of my clients and they're like, this is the best thing ever. So we actually now have places that will allow you to come and like hit old TVs. And you paid for that privilege to do that. Isn't that the craziest thing? So high levels of self-care are present in a person who experiences emotional health. Self-compassion and care for one's physical body, they're important to people who also place importance on emotional health. So care for the whole self, right, is intentional and regularly practiced. So how then do we look at this emotion-brain alliance? How is the brain interacting actually with the emotions? So this is a great infographic by Jackson Morshim. And I love this because it kind of gives us this visual that we need to understand about our brain as we're working through here. Now, what you're going to see from left to right, this is the frontal lobe right here. And then right behind it is kind of that temporal lobe back to the brain stem. Parietal lobe is on the top. Occipital lobe is all the way in the back for your eyes and a couple other things. So what we really want to focus on today about understanding this emotion-brain alliance is your brain stem, the temporal lobe, and your frontal lobe. Those are going to be the three that we concentrate on. So the brainstem, where the brain needs to be open, optimized, if you think in terms of the old TVs, remember you used to have the rabbit ears because otherwise it was all like fuzzy. Am I showing my age here? Does anybody remember fuzzy TVs? So the idea is you can't really see anything because it's got a lot of static, right? What we want is crystal clear TV, like these lovely plasma TVs now, right? Super clear. The temporal lobe, where emotions are created and memories are stored, note that's where the red X is, because we're going to come back to that red X in just a second. That red X is where your amygdala lives. The amygdala is the area that is whether you are friend or foe, depending on your emotions. So your amygdala regulates certain fight, flight, freeze responses. And so depending on whether it's deeming you as your body is in fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn or not, depends on whether that amygdala is your friend or your foe. And the frontal lobe, right there, that is where all your executive processing is happening. So how do we then identify that we have the survival mode? We have fight, flight, freeze. There's actually two more, faint and fawn. And so that frontal lobe, the yellow that you see on there, it actually is going to go offline when there is that fight, flight, freeze response, because the amygdala treats your body and that response now as a foe and goes, I'm going to take over now, and basically takes it hostage. So the limbic system's in blue. That's where the amygdala lives. The yellow is that prefrontal cortex, that frontal lobe, where the threat is strong. The amygdala acts quickly, and then it's going to overpower or take hostage that frontal lobe. That triggers even more of a fight, flight, freeze response. So without your frontal lobe, guys, you're not thinking clearly. You can't make rational decisions. You can't even control your responses. I don't know why I just said that. Case in point, right? So when you are irritable, or all of a sudden you're yelling and you don't even know why, or you can't control those responses, or you're lashing out, all of those are because your frontal lobe has been hijacked by the amygdala. So that's really important to understand how that is working in your life. Now, for those of you who like our little comics, I found this one. I thought it was super fun. These fight, flight, freeze, faint situations cause our bodies to start creating an escape plan of some sort. You're either going to stay and fight. You are going to take flight and go, I'm out of here. It's going to paralyze. That's when you freeze. You literally can't do anything because your systems are crashing like this, and neither one is overtaking the other. So it paralyzes you. And it causes your systems to overload, and then you could faint. Now, the other one that I mentioned earlier, the F for fawn, that often looks like people pleasing actually. Why? Because if you are not keeping the peace, your system gets overstimulated. Your amygdala thinks they are a foe, and now it's going to overtake any rational thought. Pretty crazy how that works, isn't it? So in a typical F situation, the amygdala will send signals that stimulate that ANS, your automatic nervous system. Your body releases adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate gets faster. Your pain perception drops. Actually, you could actually run on a broken ankle if you are perceiving that you need to get out in flight. Your hearing actually sharpens. You're constantly listening. And then your peripheral vision increases. You can actually see all the way back here now. And then your blood flow increases to protect this part and send to your major muscles, which would be your legs, to hightail it out of there, right? So when you think about that, there's one other thing that it does. It pulls the glucose, sugar in your body. Yep. We're designed to have sugar in our body. I'm not really talking about the insulin piece right now. This is about glucose within your brain. Glucose is your fuel for your brain. How we usually talk about water is hydration for your cells in your body. Glucose is that fuel, hydration to your brain. So when it pulls that glucose from your body to your brain, it's so you can make the best decisions in fight, flight, freeze responses. So signs and symptoms of emotional distress, they could include a short fuse, obsessive or compulsive behavior, a lack of energy, memory problems, keeping yourself in isolation. Maybe you're a peacemaker. My great grandmother, she went to bed. That is how she dealt with it. Their farm was on fire. She went to bed for 3 days. And that's how she handled things. So what is it that you do? I want you to take just a second to think about that. Jot that down. When you're in distress, what do you actually do in that moment so you can be aware of it? Okay. The next slide, super important. Drum roll, please. This is the one you really want to pay attention to. This is your brain escalator. You have an upstairs and you have a downstairs. Regulation and dysregulation. Okay, upstairs brain equals regulation. Downstairs brain equals dysregulation. Let's keep those in mind as I share with you. As the amygdala is stimulated, remember now it's trying to figure out whether it's going to be a friend or a foe. Is it going to shut down and hijack the temporal lobe? If it is stimulated for any reason, good or bad, surprise parties are typically good things for people. So good surprises, right? Finding out you're going to have your first kid after 10 years of infertility. I lost it. It was a big fat mess. I should tell you that story someday, right? For any reason, good, bad, or indifferent, our body responds in a way that tries to keep us in upstairs brain, prefrontal cortex. That's a good place to be. We want to be in upstairs brain, right? That's where you're regulated. You've got a good set of emotions. It allows us to use logic and reason and judgment and rationalization. Or the amygdala can hijack and send you down the escalator stairs to downstairs brain. That then keeps us unregulated, dysregulated, run by fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn to protect you. That then leads to all kinds of fun chaos, right? And you've probably seen these in yourself, maybe other people, maybe children. They're melting down, they're screaming, they want the yellow fork, not the blue fork, they want the pink straw, not the purple straw, they want their sandwich cut in squares versus triangles today. Yeah, pick the issue, right? As a teen, it might be, why are you bothering me? I need to sleep till 1 o'clock, right? And they're yelling at you, get out of the room, right? It goes throughout our life. And even as adults, we have this dysregulation happen. When's the last time you threw a fit? When's the last time you were acting out of anxiety or panic or fear? It doesn't have to look like you're stamping your foot and throwing things. It can be a dysregulation just within that emotional component of allowing yourself to listen to negative thoughts, of allowing yourself to agree with those negative thoughts, allowing yourself to be stuck, self-sabotage, paralyzation, victim mentality. Any of those sound familiar? So we see this in many, many children and adults, to be honest, when they can't answer your question or request because they're overstimulated. They're unable to figure out what's wrong. And then they tend to slide right down those stairs into complete chaos of dysregulation. So here is your big helpful tip. If you hear nothing else that I have said today, do not go down the escalator with them. This is really important, guys, because you need to stay regulated. You need to stay calm. You need to stay peaceful, and you need to help them identify, even as a 2-year-old, as a 1-year-old, as a baby, as an adult, right? How to get back up the front of the stairs, back to rational thought and judgment. Now, a lot of this premise comes from Dr. Karen Purvis of TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention, a fantastic resource. I would encourage you guys to look her up online. So what are then these peacekeeping tools? You keep talking about 10 self tools, but I understand the upstairs now and the downstairs, but how do we make it stay in the upstairs? So let's talk about those tools to keep you in peacekeeping mode. So the first one is really understanding intentional emotional regulation. So this could be by meditation. And meditation, I really want to stress to everyone, is not about emptying your mind. It's not. It is about pouring in truth and allowing oneself to really absorb that truth into your mind, body, and spirit. So, for example, what I choose to do in meditation is something called scripture naming. So a great way to do this is you're inserting names into different scriptures. So, Lord, may all that I am, Crystal, wait quietly before you, for my hope is in you, right? Or if we pray that over our kids, Lord, may all that Katie is wait quietly before you, for her hope is in you. And so when we are doing that, we're creating a different approach with our mind, renewing our mind, which is what we're supposed to be doing, right? And we're renewing it in the word that actually is the best word that you can have, right? Now, there's also journaling. Now, there's 3 or 4 different types of journaling. I want to focus on these 3 for just a moment. Journaling is really a way to identify your emotions, how you are interacting with those emotions, how they are interacting with you physically, emotionally, right? Because one emotion could trigger another emotion. And then the question becomes, are you really dealing with kind of the outskirts of the emotions? Like, oh, I'm just mad. Well, are you really mad? Are you disappointed because you didn't get the job? Right? So then we have to drill down a little deeper. Let's really understand and identify our feelings so we know actually what we're actually working on. So then I actually put together a 60 podcast called Emotions, Wisdom in Your Body. And we take one of those emotions and we identify the definition of it, the negative within the body of it, and what it does negatively to the body. And then how do we flip it? How do we create the negative into the positive? How do we transition that? And then there's also a scripture reference at the end. Because the idea is we need to learn to partner with our emotions. We have authority over those. In fact, one of the things that I teach my clients is, in the name of Jesus, I take authority over my thoughts, feelings, emotions, conscious and subconscious, dreams and visions, under the rule and reign of Jesus Christ. Because we need to remind ourselves that we're in charge of us, right? That we have that power and authority over our emotions, instead of just thinking that we have to be dysregulated all the time, which is living in downstairs brain. So these are 2 different tools. So let's talk about active emotional regulation. I absolutely love these 3. These I use all the time. The first one is music. Now, I would not suggest any of the current music that's out there. I woke up this morning singing one of my child songs and went, oh my gosh, like I don't even want that song in my head, right? And so how do we combat some of those things? We listen to music that actually encourages, edifies, and strengthens us. So I actually have an Alexa. If I say it too loud, she turns on. And so she actually has tons of great stations. Oh, did you hear her? She's talking now. So there's one called the Passion Station, and I just love that one. That's a combination of a variety of praise and worship and different things that really just feed your soul, feed your brain, feed your emotions. But what I want to share with you is Whole Tones. WholeTones.com, and you can see that right there on this graphic right here. This is 852. Michael Terrell actually figured out the frequency level of the music that David played on the harp for Saul. And this was fascinating. He wrote a whole book on it. And so he figured out that those certain frequencies can do different things within our body. We are frequency energy-based beings. You know that verse that says, even if we don't praise him, the rocks and trees, they're going to cry out, right? That's that frequency that he's talking about in there. This opportunity that our system of energy and frequency of our cells, which at birth is -70. And you'll hear more about this particular tool later this week. At -70, we're born. And soon as we're born, it begins to creep up to 0. Well, if our cell frequency gets to 0, guess what, guys? You're done. You have transitioned up there. Okay. And so we need to keep that as far down to -70 while we're here for kingdom impact. We have things to do while we're here, right? We have a plan and a purpose and a destiny. And so to make sure that we are keeping our cells as alive as possible, we need to make sure that we are playing things at the right frequency. It's also why rock and roll is at a frequency of addiction. Yes, I have scientific proof of that, actually. It's kind of interesting. So when you think about your music, what are you playing around you, in you, through you, listening to, even commercial music? There's a reason that commercials are addictive for you, to get you to go buy something that you never even intentionally meant to buy. There's a reason for it. Music plays one part of that. Now, let's talk then about inner heart healing. So inner heart healing, when you think about all those emotions, those feelings that as a kid, you didn't know what to do with because maybe you were told, we don't do that. Or boys, notorious, boys don't cry. Why don't they? Are they inhuman? Are they aliens? They should absolutely be able to cry because it's a very good release out of that toxicity of those emotions within our body, right? Feelings buried alive never die. And in fact, I have that book over here somewhere. I brought it out just for you guys. All right, now I can't find it. I'm gonna have to find it and show it to you guys. But that's a great book too. Feelings buried alive never die. They seep infectiously into our daily thoughts, our attitudes, our decisions. And inner heart healing, that is changing the inner heart motives and attitudes instead of just changing the outer appearance. I could go change my sweater, but that doesn't solve my problem of why I didn't like that other one to begin with, because maybe it reminded me of something that somebody said to me one time about that sweater in elementary school. Do you hear how crazy that is? And yet all day long, that's what we all do until we get heart healing. And then we allow that thing that happened so many years ago, if not generationally, to influence how we're making decisions today. Of course you're not winning. Why aren't you winning? Because those things are still running your life. We got to get those fixed. We got to get those healed. We got to get those broken off of you so you can walk in what God has already promised you that you are worthy to have as royalty. So once that inner heart is healed, the outward fruit then becomes visible, right? One way to work on the inner heart is through something called splunkna. Now that is actually what I am actually certified in, and it's a mind-body psychology. It utilizes the same system in the body that an acupuncture or chiropractor is based on to alleviate emotional trauma that's physically stored. And the splunkna protocol, it's a combination of actually 3 modalities the actual psychological realm uses, and then it's Christ-driven. That's the biggest piece to that. And that's what makes all the difference in the world, because Jesus is the healer, right? And so it's not those modalities. It's not talking about whether your mom was horrible or your dad didn't listen to you or dad was never there or somebody was a workaholic over and over and over and over and over again for 20 years and you get nowhere. But Jesus steps in one time, done, right? And so it helps this client that you're working with identify where the body is holding those different emotions related to root traumas, even generational traumas. And it's so effective that I saw in one session things that I had been trying to figure out for 20 years. And why did I just keep hitting this wall in this one area, right? In one session, it was gone. Is unbelievable. And then I saw somebody else go into their session, and it was something they had been struggling with since they were 8 years old when they were abused at a church. And so even though that person came to know Jesus later as an adult, there was still this inability to be free in worshiping God at any location. One session of splunkna, and the next Sunday, I saw that person worship like I had never seen them worship in 10 years. And that's how long I'd known them. It was incredible. And so guys, I'm just saying to you, there are so many amazing tools that are out there. And some of them are so much easier to get a hold of immediately than others. But these ones, whole tone, splunk net, inner heart healing, really, those are super important keys that you can use on a routine basis at any given time. So let's talk about then some dailies. And these are my extraordinary dailies that we use. So first of all, I'm going to tell you not to exercise. No, don't forget. I'm going to tell you to move your body. For me, one of the things that I had trauma around was exercise, because I should have always been exercising. And part of that was something that, you know, a family member, if they exercise, then I had to exercise. And I'm like, I don't need to do this. And at that point, I was a teenager, I had, you know, the bikini body at that point, and like in my mind, why did I need to do this, right? As being forced. And so a lot of trauma and drama around that. And I had a lot of inner heart healing around it. And what the Lord revealed to me was that word triggered things in me. And even though they've been healed, I don't have any rise from it. That emotional disconnection from it is fine, like it's healed. But how could I then partner with my body to get more exercise, actually? So that's why he gave me the word movement. So I need to be a movement maker. Now, for those of you who know Pedro Adaho, that means something totally different. But in this case, it is about moving the body, right? And now we live in Zoom society, and so we don't move as much as we should. So I'm gonna encourage you guys to be a movement maker as well. Honoring your health by keeping it moving. There is actually 2,000 steps. Actually equals about 1 walking mile. So there's a great guy online called Get Fit with Rick, R-I-C-K. I love him. He's out in Dubai. And he always does his little walking routine on the water. And I miss my water living here in the Rockies. So it's lovely. It's peaceful. He does fun music. And so that's one idea. You could do walking with Leslie. She was really big in the last decade or two. But then otherwise, get moving on TikTok. If you've got kids and teens, guess where they're living? On TikTok. Learn some of the TikTok dances with them. You're building a relationship with your kids. You're getting moving. And honestly, you're going to have a good time doing it. Because us oldies, we just don't do the TikToks like the younger ones do. And then it's a great connector with your family. Just get moving, right? That movement also releases your endorphins. It increases your dopamine in that reward center of your brain. So it's super important. Then there is EFT tapping. So this is emotional freedom technique tapping, and it will actually help you not only create better systems within your body, within your brain, get rid of those ants, automatic negative thoughts, but it can actually lead to other things. So I taught a class in EFT tapping. I'm a practitioner in it. And this is really using the same acupuncture points. So you start at the top of your head and you can come in here to your eye and under to here and then to your hand. And you learn this tapping technique while you're saying different things. It could be releasing trauma. It could be pouring in affirmations. And for me, it actually led me to drinking water. I actually have my water right here. And so what I hate water. I should say I hated water, right? Until I really understood what EFT could do for my mindset and my body. And now I will drink it. Now, I will tell you, I only drink one particular bottle of water. No, I'm not high maintenance. I can just taste the differences. But I dropped 11 pounds in a month just tapping as well, where you're releasing those things that you're just holding onto on a daily basis, right? And guess what? This is how cool this is. So if you tap, right, you're tapping, you do that for an hour worth of tapping. And by the time you do those words, those affirmations, the things that you want to get out of your system as well, after an hour, you actually drop your cortisol level by 25%. That's unheard of. And not just that, for all those of you who have PTSD, it is proven to be 83% effective. Guys, there is nothing on the market that is more effective for PTSD actually than this. And it's portable. And all you have to do is learn the pieces and you're done. You can go and do this all day long. You can do it in your bed. You can do it in the shower. You can do it in your car. You can do it at a red light. You can do it on a walk. I feel like I'm a Dr. Seuss book. But you can use EFT tapping for so many different things. And the great thing is you can do it on other people. So that person that I mentioned to you that I was in the ER with, her pain level like spiked really fast. And so I just reached over and I started tapping right here. This is called your triple warmer. And so I'm tapping there. And so you could just see her visually like come down. And so she got to a place, she's like, what did you do? I'm like, just tapping. We're just tapping. She's like, what did it do to me? I'm like, it reduced your cortisol. It reduced a lot of things for you. It just took your mind off of it too. And so I just want to encourage you guys, some of these tools that I'm sharing with you today alone are things that you could pick up immediately. So the great way to do that is through the tapping solution. It's actually an application that you can put on your phone, and they have a free and a paid version, and that's the tapping meditation one that you have right there. Now, the changes were so fruitful with EFT that I became a practitioner for that too. I saw the value. Then the last thing that I want to talk to you about is glucose. Remember, glucose is hoarded in that fight, flight, freeze response. And so it resets your brain system. It recharges your brain even more because it needs to regulate those emotions. And then it needs to basically recharge your brain like you need to recharge your phone, right? And so when you do that, you're actually impacting that fight, fright, freeze response in a positive way. So it's not your amygdala hijacking your frontal lobe. So if you go to peakneuropsych.com, and I'll drop it into the group as well, peakneuropsych.com, it's going to give you tons of information about the glucose protocol, super easy to do. You can get a 50-pound bag of glucose to start that protocol for like $30 online. I mean, it's dirt cheap. This is the same glucose, guys, that's in a Smarties pack and in the Nerds pack, not the Hershey bar pack. Just the Smarties and the Nerds. Why it's in those versus the other one is processed sugar. This is actual dextrose glucose. Now, the kind that we use is corn-based, organic corn-based, but you have an opportunity to do this and I can guide you through it. I can direct you to a practitioner who does this on a full-time basis, but that glucose protocol can literally in 6 to 9 months revolutionize your brain where you wake up and you're like, holy moly, somebody turned on the light in my brain. This is amazing, right? All right. So let's talk number 9, the ultimate stealth weapons of wellness. These are backed by research and science. The first one is HPT. This is human performance technology. This is a drug-free pattern that triggers your brain stem. Remember, we talked about that's kind of where that static versus non-static issue is with your TV. We need that brain stem to be open and working, right? So the rest of your body can work. So that's going to calm your nervous system, your central nervous system, that then leads to regulation. We're staying in upstairs brain, right? So the HTP really is instant. So you're going to see this pattern right here. This is on the bottom of an insole. It also comes in socks as well as a patch. And that drug-free pattern triggers your brain for more optimization. And then it improves balance, mobility, pain management, a better energy level, recovery process, and really ultimately a happier, healthier life. And get this, I love these studies. These are so awesome. 100% of the participants in an independent study experienced, means everybody in the study experienced an average of 36% increase in brain overall optimization with this particular tool. Guys, that's incredible. Like really, that is just nothing short of miraculous, right? To have 100% of the participants receive something out of it. Now, the next one is cognitive behavioral brain technology. That is actually what I'm wearing right here. It's a sleeve. It also comes in the gray that matches what you see. This pattern right here is a different pattern than the red one. So this pattern goes right here. This is the ADHDer's best friend. This was actually designed by the same gentleman who made the red one. And his kids came home from college and said, Dad, you got to help all our friends. He's like, what's going on? He's like, they're all taking these meds to get focused. And I know that you can create a pattern that'll fix it. And he did. And it's so cool. And that's why I have it on here so I can stay focused, right? And I will share a story with you about how important this pattern became in our own life. So basically, my daughter and I were walking an indoor 5K. And about halfway through, she's like, I need a break. I need some protein. So as we're in line to get some protein, she began to tell me she really wasn't feeling too well. And then she showed me her hand and it was tremoring. Now, at this point, we knew something was off. We didn't quite understand why she was having these tremors, but we knew, okay, so we're tremoring. All right, let's get the protein. Let's get the water. Let's sit down. Let's see where we are. And we weren't walking fast. It was just a stroll in an indoor mall because it was snowing outside. So then once she ate some of the protein and the water, her legs had begun to shake at that point. That was not normal for her. And then both hands. So then we headed home. We grabbed our ER bag because we're that family and we have one. And then we went to the ER. And by the time we went to the ER, we were there about 9 hours, 2 neurologists, and no answers. We got told, it's all in your head. I know. Yeah, right. And so go home and sleep it off. We're like, she can't sleep. She's moving. So she pretty much passed out that night in the bed, really from the amount of shaking it does to your body and your energy level. You're exhausted from it. So she passes out and then she wakes up, and that is the week of finals. I know, right? So I'm like, hey, go get your sleep, right? Go get your sleep. So as soon as I said that to her, I went, oh, yeah, go get your sleep. I had literally given a presentation very similar to this one the Friday before we did that walk on Saturday. This is how silly this is, right? But you're in a moment as a caregiver that you can't think yourself, which is all the more reason why I wear this a lot now, right? So she went and got her sleeve, which she usually wears for ADHD and focus while she does her homework. She put it on her arm, and within moments, guys, I wish I had timed it. Moments, her tremors all stopped. Gone. Stopped. 19 days, my daughter would take this off and see if she was still tremoring. It took 19 days. And then a conversation with somebody that finally allowed those tremors to stop. There is a physical switch that happens in that brain that those doctors have not figured out yet from something that triggers many, many, many people around the world with PEN seizures. They're called PNES seizures. But in the meantime, this lovely thing solves the issue. Amazing, isn't it? Now, I would tell you that sleeve is her saving grace because I can tell you her mental health was decreasing rapidly during those 19 days, rapidly. And I believe that because she got relief when she put those on, and she ended up sleeping on it. She didn't even want to take it off of the shower. I'm like, honey, you got to take it off of the shower. But I could just wash it in the shower. It was that bad. She didn't want to take it off. So I am a firm believer in that pattern can interrupt that amygdala from hijacking your prefrontal cortex. It's amazing. So now let's talk about sleep. So REM sleep is really about regulating your emotions and your memories. It's also about taking out the trash out of your body, all the toxins. So sleep deprived leads to more repetitive negative thoughts, depression, overly reactive, emotionally reactive. Basically, you're going to stay in downstairs brain if you don't get good sleep. That's really what it comes down to. So over 8 hours, we are supposed to sleep at least 2 in REM sleep minimum. When your body needs to reset itself, when it needs to take out the garbage and clean up the toxins and regulate the emotions in those memories, where trauma is also rooted, right? So can you imagine what an extra hour of REM sleep could do, which is another product that's available? That could immediately get rid of just even your brain fog. All right. So now let's embrace our emotional health every day. So you're getting tons of tools here today. So first of all, let's talk about identifying personal strengths, building them, living from those personal strengths, right? We're embracing life to do that. We're learning optimism, realistically seeing the positive even in the bad situations. We had a situation that came up, and I looked at a good friend just the other night, and I said, so you're going down a path to tell me this story, and all I hear you focusing on is the negative. Could we just put a pause in that story and share with me the one positive thing that came out of that story? And in that process of flipping that script of how we even share stories about chaos that might be happening in our lives, it shifted the perspective of that situation. And some of the things that this particular young lady has gone through has actually been pioneering for several doctors in the Ehlers-Danlos community, even locally and on a national and global level. That's huge. I know another young lady just like that for the MCAS, which is your anaphylaxis, mast activation syndrome. And so because she brought it to the forefront and she started a Facebook group on it, now there's this global awareness around mast cell, which is incredible. One person can change the whole world, guys. One person can. So we're developing the courage to define and then live your life worth living. And no matter what it looks like, how do we best live that life in this moment to not just survive, but thrive? Are we seeing the good in ourselves? Are we developing a healthy self-concept? Are we building a social network, even if it's small community, but it's authentic community? It's one you can be vulnerable in, you can share ups and downs with, right? We're honing those resiliency skills so we can then teach resiliency skills, right? The ability to learn from and bounce back from a setback so we can be flexible in facing challenges. But we have to be able to do that well so we can teach that well. And then we're creating a set of coping skills for dealing with mental health difficulties and external stress, living life with a sense of purpose. So what's your call? How are you making an impact and creating a living legacy? Because every single person who is on here now and is watching this video later, you have a legacy that you need to leave. And we're not talking financial. That's always good, right? But we're talking about a legacy that will impact generations moving forward. So how do we honor your sense of creativity in your hobbies and your leisure time? I really want you to think about that. So as we wrap up, let's really think about how we create that convergence of emotional health, your emotion and your brain, that alliance for a lifetime legacy through awareness, keeping the brain and emotions happy, right? Because you have authority over those. And then implementing just even one of these tools that we've talked about. And some you can start right now. As soon as we're done today, you can go download that tapping solution app and start doing EFT. You can learn EFT today. And you can implement one tool a day for each your mind, body, and spirit. So instead of being disconnected, we can be regulated. We can stay in upstairs brain. So care for the whole self is intentional, and it's regularly practiced in those areas: physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, personally, professionally. Legitimately, you can't afford not to take care of yourself. And self-care is not self-indulgence, but self-preservation in reality. And as a caregiver, helping my daughter understand her illnesses are not her identity, that's one of the biggest challenges at times, to be honest. So I want to remind each of you, your purpose and your calling are not within non-epileptic seizures, the current diagnosis, cancer, FND, or any other diagnosis you may have. You do not have to partner with those issues. And you can remember who you are versus what the issues are, right? Because you have authority over the issues, how you interact with them and how you react with and to them. So you are so much more than your diagnosis is. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those now. And I just hope that you today were able to get a couple of these particular items jot it down so you guys can go out and learn from these, use these on a routine basis. I see a couple of questions. All right. Oh, yep, Karen, you were saying you go for a long sleep too. Yep. The sleep is so important. That's for sure. That is for sure. So what questions can I answer for you guys?
I have a question for you. Here, I'll turn this on. I've been listening, but yeah, that's a lot of information. Oh, hey, sorry. There we go.
There you are.
There
I
we
was
are.
going to talk to the mountain. We're good.
Yeah. So you were talking about REM sleep. Like, if we were to look at the time of the clock, the time of night, when are we in REM? How do we know how much REM we get? And how do we know when we can get more?
So that's a great question. A lot of people have gone to a Fitbit kind of watch to track their REM sleep. There's actually a ring out there called the Array ring that a lot of other people tend to like more because it's not sitting on their wrist. They've had some people with just skin allergies with the Fitbit and the Wi-Fi affecting them neurologically. But the ring is a little different. So the ring looks just like a black ring, a little thicker than this one, and it actually will send it to your phone, and that will tell you how much REM sleep you got. I would tell you to look for even a phone app. Now, the only problem with doing the phone apps is it's keeping the Wi-Fi on by your head. But if you did it for a couple of nights to kind of get a pattern of how much REM sleep you're getting, you could download a REM sleep app, leave it up and on right by your head while you sleep, and it'll actually read some of your body frequency off of you to identify how much REM sleep you're actually getting. A lot of doctors will tell you you should be in bed before 10 o'clock. For those of us who are night owls, that's really hard to do. But yeah, your best sleep actually is between 10 and 12 is what they're telling you now. And so, you have to make that decision of, does that work for my body? Is that a routine that I can handle, that I can keep up with? But also to really evaluate how much REM sleep are you getting? That is one of the biggest issues. Because if you don't know, you're not going to have that ground foundation of, are you actually increasing it? So then one of the patches that that particular company has is a REM patch. And so when you put it on, man, you sleep like crazy. I can also tell you, I just started a little cream called DHEA. As a woman, it's something that we are very deficient in oftentimes. I just started that and I've been sleeping pretty well once I get to bed. 2 a.m. is not really the best time to go to bed. But once I get to bed and I put that, I rub it on my wrists, and it's like less than a dime size. It's like not much at all. I can send you over or post in the group the one that I use. I really like the company. I researched it a lot, and I like what they're about. So there's not any extra fillers or products in it. So DHEA is just something that we tend to be deficient in. And then the other thing is to really think about, based on your age, if you are premenopausal or in menopause. The fact is there's estrogen and progesterone issues, and I would strongly encourage everyone to get hormonal testing done. I can give you a link for Dr. Allen's. It's called LabMe, and he created this opportunity for you to get your own lab work done, so you can actually have real results versus just what the doctors want to tell you. They're always looking for the results within the range. Oh, well, you're in the range, you're fine. But they miss the fact that you're at the low level of the range in 3 main places. And when you put all 3 of those together, that's a really bad thing. They don't put those moving parts and pieces together like holistic doctors tend to do. And he was actually an ER doctor. Dr. Allen was actually the Biggest Loser, if you remember that TV show. He was the doctor on that TV show. And he was devastated when one of their trainers, who worked out all the time, had a heart attack. He's like, we even test your blood. Like, what did we miss? Come to find out, doctors don't typically test lipid A, which tells you whether you have a heart condition that's genetic. And so had they done that one test, he would have never have had the heart attack, because he would have been on something that would have prevented it. And so his is genetic versus diet and exercise. And he was eating vegan and shared all these recipes. I mean, he was like in the best shape of his life. So it didn't make sense that he had this heart attack, and it was genetic. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces there. So I would tell you, check your hormone levels, see if you can pick up something that will actually check your REM sleep for you, so you can get an idea, or at least be using your phone, because that's free right now, instead of having to go buy something, and then get a feel of what that looks like. And one of the tools that I am willing to send you guys right now is I'll send you a REM patch to try for one night. So if you guys send me over in the chat, you can put it in the chat, or you can DM me directly if you don't want to put your address in the chat. I'll send you one of the REM patches, and you guys can try it out and see how that works for you.
Thank you. What about that sleeve? You were talking about that sleeve that has a special pattern.
Yes.
A lot of this is a bit above my level of understanding. So this doctor, was it a doctor who came up with the pattern that interrupts the amygdala, if I understand correctly, from keeping us from fight, flight, or freeze?
So actually, Jay Dollywall is who created it. And the pattern, the red pattern, that opens the brainstem, actually releases the vagus nerve that runs right here, which you're seeing everything and their brother talk about the vagus nerve now. He's been doing it for 10 years. I just think it's hysterical that they all finally caught up with Jay. But Jay started this because his mom has MS, and he's from India. And at the time when he was 14, his mom, they basically said, his mom's going to die, hang it up, move on. And he's like, over my dead body. And he said, no one else is going to help you, mom, I'm going to help you. So he got in the stock market, made a lot of money, and then became what's called an angel investor. And an initial dentist had some of this pattern to release the vagus nerve out for dental procedures. And so he bought that technology, and then it just expanded it like crazy. In fact, the pattern actually has his DNA thumbprint in it. It's kind of fun. So nobody can copy it. So the one that he started with was for the balance and the pain control and things like that for his mom. This one on the sleeve, this is the pretty sleeve versus the blue sleeve, same pattern there. But that pattern actually shifts. So it's not just opening the brainstem, but it's bouncing to here to really overtake that amygdala, interrupt it, so it's not taking over that temporal lobe, so you can focus more, you have more mental clarity. And there's actually scientific proof of it. They've got tons of studies on it, and in fact, one of the doctors who did some of the initial science to it actually used to live right here in Castle Rock, right down the road. We've seen him, Dr. D. Great guy.
Okay, you ready for this one?
Okay, I can try.
About the whole tones. I looked into whole tones once before, and I found it a little strange for me, and it seemed like New Age. Can you speak to that for me?
Yeah, you need to borrow my book. You live close enough to come borrow it. Because Michael Terrell is a Christian, very kingdom oriented. And the whole point of it was actually the frequencies. So if you were listening to Yanni, I would tell you those frequencies are new age, and they are designed to do something completely different into your body. But what Michael has actually created, people actually are getting physical healing just by listening to whole tunes. It's pretty crazy. Now, he has 3 albums out. The very first one, I personally can't handle for my head. It's very Moroccan flavored. The tempos, the beats, the height, the high pitched, they didn't sit well with my head at all. But then he came out with one about lullabies. They're all Christian lullabies. And then he came out with a Christmas one. My kid loves the Christmas one because she loves all things Christmas too. But I love the lullaby one. And in fact, Katie slept to that for many, many years until we found a different version of Christian hymns that she just moved to after that. But yeah, it's all Christian based. And he actually goes through the science. That's what I really like about his book, that he's talking about understanding the science. I had no idea during the Nazi period that they actually developed what we listen to on the current radio on purpose. So they could actually almost like take over your brain at that certain frequency. It's kind of crazy. And, you know, it's just another way to understand how people can interact with your body and you're not even realizing that. So that's why I only suggest tools that I have used, that I believe in, that I have, I'm not going to say faith in, but I know that they are kingdom oriented and they're not here to harm you and in a bad way of opening up portals or gates or anything else like that that would create, you know, chaos. So I want to make sure that, you know, you guys have everything that you need to stay kingdom minded for kingdom impact. So does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you.
Come get my book, Mara.
Thank you.
I see we lost Deborah somewhere along the way. I couldn't see all of you guys and run the presentation today. It was just not working very well.
How do you know which sleeve you might need?
So they do the same thing. So the sleeves are the same pattern. The red is a different pattern for the brainstem. So we actually use both here. So Katie and I both wear the insoles. They have a really thin insole that we have in our shoes. And then we wear this when we need to focus. So like doing these presentations or getting the funnel going or something like that, something that I need to like stay in the zone for. These will allow kiddo and I, and we both have ADHD, to stay in a good zone for 2 or 3 hours and not get out of that zone, which is really nice. So the sleeves, this was generation 1 and this is generation 2, basically. And so now I personally prefer generation 1. It's more compressive. And generation 2, you need about 2 sizes smaller. So I wear an extra large in this one, and in this one, I'm a medium on a bad day, a large. So they're a lot smaller. The nice thing is they've got them this half size, and then they've got them a whole sleeve as well. So anybody who has lymphedema, these sleeves are incredible for lymphedema. I mean, just incredible. And so you can wear half.
What is lymphedema?
Swelling in your arm. So there are moments where this particular arm will actually be down here. I'll have lymphedema from sleeping for some reason. No one can tell me why. I never did anything to that shoulder. I would have thought it would have been this one, but I wake up and I'm like, oh, look, I got my chicken wing back. You know, that's what I call it. And so I go and put my sleeve on, and then, you know, by a couple hours later, it's gone. So, you know, there are things about these particular patterns that I called Vox and I said, hey, so I was wearing the sleeve and it helped me with my lymphedema. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. They like hadn't realized that that was a side benefit to what it did. So it was kind of fun.
Compression sleeves then?
Tell me again.
Are these compression sleeves?
This one is more compressive than this one. This one's super loose. In fact, I realized that this is my newer one, and I like to put a little stitch right here at the top so it stays up here on my arm a little better and I don't have to keep pulling it up. So this one's a lightweighter, a lot lightweight. This one's not super heavy, but you can definitely feel a difference in the fabrics and the materials. And then the one that I have a whole arm one. I don't know what Katie did with it, but it comes all the way up here. And I put a little stitch on that one too, just so it stays up there a little better. You could put a little piece of Velcro if you wanted, or something like that, but a little stitch does it and you're done.
So what does the red one do for your brain?
The red one opens your brain stem in the back of your head. It opens your brain stem. So instead of like, you have a whiteout, and then you put that on, and within 7 seconds, it's like you're at the beach. You're calm, you're grounded, you're relaxed. You can think clearly, you can process, you can multitask, and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Whiteout, that's the first I've heard of that. That's a panic attack, I take it?
Colorado whiteout could be a panic attack. Mm-hmm.
That's not what I meant, but that's snowfall, but.
No, but I could see it as that. Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
So you're saying that the red one, I didn't see you with anything red. You're talking about the thing up for the shoe or the asleep?
Yeah, the shoe. Yeah, so it's the pattern on the bottom of the shoe, and I thought I brought one in here, but I forgot to bring it in. So it's the pattern on the bottom of the insole and the bottom of a sock, as well as it makes it. He makes that into a patch as well. If you'd rather wear a patch, the patch wears 48 hours. The insoles, we've had some of our insoles for 2 years, and they don't wear out that much. And then the thicker insoles, if you like a good heel cushion. So I've got a thinner insole in my daily shoe, and then the thicker insole in my workout shoes, just because it has a better heel cup to it.
So I've suffered from anxieties and fight or flight since 3 years old. And I'm 58 now, so 55 years basically. And so right now I'm feeling anxiety. Just talking about all these things. This is not a direction I had planned to go in.
That little spot right there between the finger and the little pinky.
Okay, the web right here.
Yep, that little gully. I call it the gully.
The belly.
Take your 3 fingers and just tap while you're talking to me.
Okay.
It makes a difference. It's crazy.
I'll test it out. I'll test it out because I was not planning to go this direction. I had already determined several years back that I am tired of the best man can offer. It's like, it's great and the Lord blesses it because he meets us right where we need to be met at. I just was tired of going through all the motions and it still wasn't good enough. And it was expensive. And so I just didn't want any of that. And I feel a slight difference is, should I go to another place or something? You did some, I don't know what you did.
Nope, you just go right there.
Okay.
Yeah, we
But-
can teach you the rest of it in membership group, but no, that is, you would actually say something while you're tapping those. But this one you can just do. I've had people actually go into surgery and wake up and the nurse is like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm just tapping for pain. And that was the first surgery. She didn't need pain control immediately. It was pretty impressive. Yeah. So to your question about the anxiety, when I got turned on to these products, it was by fluke. I was actually there to share Splunkna inner healing with some people, and somebody else came over and started talking to me, and she uses these products. And so she showed me her science of what her brain looked like without the products on and what the brain looked like with the products on. And I went, where do I sign up? Just based on that alone. I hadn't even worn this stuff yet. And I saw what it could do to their brain. And I was like, holy moly, we need that. So then when I got my box of goodies and I put them on my kiddo, I didn't realize what was happening at first. So this was 2018 to 18, I think. And so when she would come and sit with me after we had the products, so she was wearing the socks or she had the insoles. This is before they even had the sleeves. And she would come over and put her head on my shoulder. And we were going through the goth period, if you guys know what that is, like anti-mom, dad, black everything, right? So she'd come over and she put her head on there, and I like began to realize this was happening more and more. And I'm like, what the heck is this? This is interesting. And so then I hid her socks and her insoles for like a week just to see. And she went back to goth. And I went, oh no, we're putting those back on. She will never be without those socks. And it was an emotional connection that she began to have with her own body. It didn't solve everything, but it was huge for her. And it was enough for me to say, I'm a believer, I'm sold. Then the other story that I'll share with you, and then I will have to wrap up. So that July, so we had got them June 1st. So we hadn't had them that long. The reality was I didn't have them in my shoes. I really was like, I want these on her, right? That's what we do as caregivers. Give it to the kid that needs it, right? And so I put them on her. She was working at a place called Rockledge Ranch, which is a 1880s farm here. for the summer, and they were doing the 4th of July special. So they asked us as parents for the kids who are volunteering there to come in and cut the pie and serve the lemonade on 4th of July. I had my good orthotics. They were custom made, and I had my good tennis shoes, and I was ready, right? Yeah, right. 4 hours after cutting pie at a 45-degree angle on a small table, right? I couldn't even stand up. I was in excruciating pain. Now, to understand that, I've broken my tailbone twice. I have tumors on my kidneys and my spine, and I have spinal stenosis. So there's degeneration in the bottom part of my spine. So, and I have plantar fasciitis like crazy. Now, I'm saying I have those, but I know God's healing them. So let's not get into that logistic right now. But I could not walk to my car. I was in that much excruciating pain. I was shuffling. And so I get in the car and I look at my kid. I'm like, okay, so we're going to go home. We're going to get on my adjustable bed. The feet are going to go up because my knees were this big. No exaggerated. It was just bad. And so I came home. She watched a video next to me. We both kind of chilled in the air conditioning because it was like 128,000 degrees that day. And then an hour later, I literally had to roll off the bed because we had to go to this other event. It was like we were already committed to it. And I rolled off the bed. I'm like, oh, goodness. Okay, I can get from 45 degrees to, I'm a little better, but I'm still leaning over. I'm like, oh, Katie, go get those insoles and put them in my shoes and help me put my shoes on because I couldn't bend over to put my shoes on. So she puts the insoles in. Now, to understand, I put the insoles on at my front door, and then here's my front door. I walk over, I go out the garage, around the car, and get in the car. That's all I have to do, right? I don't know, 20 feet maybe? By the time I sat down in my car, I sat straight up and had zero pain. I've never been without my Vox on since.
So from your house to your car, you had
20
time?
feet. 20 feet was all it took. That duration of time, I stood up and I went, wow, I have no pain. And I was fine the rest of the night. My knees went down. My feet didn't hurt. My back didn't hurt. The next day I hurt. I didn't wear the Vox that night. I learned my lesson the hard way. I put the Vox on as soon as I got up that morning.
And so the Vox is that insole that goes in your shoe. It took 20 steps and you were pain-free. 20 steps massaging whatever spot it is that goes to your brain from your foot.
Yep, it opens your brain stem. And when you open your brain stem and you release your vagus nerve, your brain can work. So then your brain can coordinate anything in your body that needs to happen. So if something needs to go to your pain control center, or if you need white blood cells, or if you need red blood cells, whatever your body needs in that moment, your brain is now on and functioning. Whereas before, it was basically like a clogged drain and you just pulled the hair out of it. And now it's like flowing like crazy, right? And it's working.
Beginning to make sense. One more question. What is the vagus nerve?
So the vagus nerve is the one that comes out from your brain stem, out your neck, comes around here and actually releases your jaw. It also goes down all the way down your spine. It's one of the biggest, most important nerves that you actually have in your whole body. And it wraps to a variety of places within your body as well. And so when you can get that relaxed, then your brain is working. But when it is tight, it's why you clench, it's why you grind, it's why I have to crack teeth before I found this product. TMJ, it gives you TMJ, so it can come from trauma. Mine came from a car accident when I was in that car accident that I shared with you guys. And so I began to grind and clench at that point for TMJ. And so I even saw a TMJ specialist pay $2,500 for a retainer that my child, God bless her, promptly flushed in the toilet because she wanted to wash it.
Oh.
Yeah, that was when she was 4. I love my child.
So do you wear those socks at night as well?
They do. And so the nice thing is they came out with ones that are called invisible, because some people like wearing socks, others don't. You don't need both on, because once your brain's open. So, but they sell socks in pairs, right? So they sell both, but you only need one sock on to open your brain. And so some people who don't like to wear socks will just wear one of the normal wellness socks or athletic socks. But this invisible one looks almost like a ballet shoe. So it's just like over the toe and over the heel. And a lot of people who don't like to wear socks at night love that particular version of it, because they're not getting hot and sweaty at night from wearing socks, but they get to have their Vox on. Or they wear a patch, and they wear the patch for 48 hours. It's the same exact pattern on the socks as the insole as the patch. So
So do you
and
have to
that
keep
is-
replacing the patch?
yeah, so it's every 48 hours you put on a new patch, and then the bag of them last a month. So you buy them by the month. That's why it is more cost effective to get insoles. I actually have insoles in my slippers. And so I buy slippers that have a heel to them, not just ones that you slip in. The funny thing is, one of the guys who was using them went to Florida. He's from Canada. He went to Florida and he had flip-flops, like the toe version of the flip-flops. And so he actually did a little video and goes, I brought my box. He goes, I got my double-sided tape. He sits on the beach. I would not have done this at the beach or stand everywhere. He sits down, he puts the double-sided tape on the top of the flip-flop, and then he puts it on the bottom of the insole, and he slides a slit into the insole so it goes around that little toe piece on the sandal. So he had his box at the beach. I mean, once you're a believer, you're sold, right? So the questions come up, where do you find these? So I am not withholding any information, but what I'd like to do is withhold that for just a little while, for a couple more days, because what I'm putting together for you guys at the end of our time together is actually a toolkit that will include those tools for you. And then if you decide that you want to go and get them yourself, you're welcome to do that. But I know in the toolkit, you can get one of these, and you can, it doesn't have to be this floral, and it doesn't have to be this gray. They actually have DC licensed ones. They have blue and white ones, and I'll show you all those colors. And then it's also going to include an insole for you guys to choose from. So if we could wait on that answer, that would be great. And then I'll give you guys that on probably Wednesday. And then you guys, if you want to order them, you're welcome to do that. They're actually a Canadian Canadian company, Karen, so you actually don't have to pay extra.
One of the first things, eh?
Right, I was thinking of you for it, man. Yeah, that's you and Jen. Jen's over there in Canada too. So that's fun. So all right. Well, I tell you what, I actually have to go pick up the child from her new job. She's all super excited. I looked at her. She had her, there's another type of sock that they sell called the Boomies, Boomie. And this one helps actually with the anxiety and depression. And so I bought her some of these, and people who wear these are like, oh my gosh, these are so amazing. And so she had her Boomies on today. I'm like, are you feeling a little nervous about today, honey? She goes, it's just early, Mom.
That's precious.
Like, I hear you, but it didn't help you to go to bed at 11 o'clock last night either. Oh, she's learning. They got to learn it. They got to learn to adult. It's always hard on all of us, really. Well, I shall pray us out. And then if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will get those answered for you guys. Father, we just thank you so much that you give us these brains that work. You give us these brains that have upstairs and downstairs. You give us this central nervous system that wants to work and protect us. And Lord, we need tools to help us regulate it, because we're learning more and more about what you've created for us and what you've designed for us and how we're supposed to interact with it. And we just thank you so much for these tools. Lord, I pray that they would just be able to seep and seek into really understanding more about how that brain works, what the amygdala does, what the frontal lobe does, and how to partner with it in the best way that they can so they can walk in health, emotional, physical, spiritual. And we just thank you so much for all that you do for us and bringing these tools about and our revelation to learning about them. And we just love you, Lord. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right,
Oh,
sunshine.
great.
If we want to invite somebody else, do we just, how do we do that?
medicalmomwarriors.com.
Okay,
You and Felicia Jane should probably go register. I just knew to send you the links.
okay,
There you
thanks.
go.
medicalmomwarriors.com.
Okay, great.
Bye, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Was there a transcript?
There should have been. I turned it on.
Whoa, okay. I got in here a little bit late. Would you kindly release it for us?
I will put that in your chat. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. See you soon. 3 o'clock tomorrow. Don't forget, we're an hour later tomorrow because of that silly doctor's appointment. Bye, guys.